So think about this for a second. What does a chunky, nearly indestructible old Nokia phone have in common with a five-star luxury hotel stay? Well, on the surface, literally nothing, right? One is this heavy little brick of plastic and metal in your pocket, and the other is a fleeting, invisible experience. But if we're talking about the business world, they're actually tied together by one absolutely crucial make or break concept. And that is, how do we measure excellence across completely different consumer experiences? Like, how do we build it, manage it, and actually guarantee it every single time? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the architecture of excellence by fully decoding quality management. Now, if you've ever found yourself wondering how top-tier companies just consistently deliver amazing products and services while their competitors are kind of scrambling to keep up, well, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to break down the exact frameworks that these organizations use to design, build, and maintain absolute quality. Here's the roadmap for our explainer today. First up, we'll hit the definition of quality, then measuring goods versus services. Third, the stages of quality control. Fourth, we'll dive into the total quality management master plan. And finally, we'll wrap up with the essential TQM toolkit. Let's get right into it. Oh, right, kicking things off with Section 1, the definition of quality, beyond the buzzword. We really have to look past the corporate buzzwords to understand what quality actually means in a hard operational business context. So, here it is. Quality is the ability of a product or service to consistently meet or exceed customer expectations. I want you to really notice that word consistently, because customers are always looking for value for money, right? And true quality, it's not about being perfect just that one lucky time. It is all about hitting or surpassing that expectation every single time a transaction happens. Honestly, that is the core challenge for businesses today. And let me tell you, the stakes here couldn't be higher. High quality is basically a weapon. It builds massive competitive advantage, it generates deep trust, and it allows a company to totally dominate their market. But on the flip side, the hidden costs of poor quality are absolutely disastrous. We're talking about failures that inflate your expenses through endless rework, scrapping bad products, handling returns, managing massive public recalls, and sometimes even facing legal action. So getting quality wrong doesn't just bruise your brand's ego, it literally drains your bottom line. Moving right along to Section 2, measuring goods versus services, different yardsticks. Okay, so we know quality is absolutely vital, but how in the world do we actually measure it? Well, tangible products and intangible services need totally different yardsticks. For physical goods, we look at these 10 dimensions of excellence. Quality here isn't just one single thing, it's a giant multi-dimensional puzzle. Take a look at the lower left, reliability and durability. A perfect example of this is that legendary Nokia 3310, a phone built to survive practically anything. That sheer durability is a very specific dimension of quality. Then, if you look over on the bottom right, we've got safety. Think of Volvo, right? A brand that essentially built its entire global reputation on advanced security and robust body construction. Providers constantly have to navigate these trade-offs, from the basic functional core of a product all the way to its aesthetics to truly win over the market. But the moment we pivot to intangible services, the entire framework flips. Since services are mostly invisible, we rely on the 9 pillars of service quality, which are strategically split into operational excellence and the customer experience. Service quality relies super heavily on operational stuff, like rapid responsiveness. Basically, are you ready to jump in and help a customer immediately? But it also heavily depends on core determinants, like courtesy, being polite, being respectful, having a friendly vibe. Those aren't just nice-to-haves. They are fundamental, measurable pillars if you want to deliver a genuinely high-quality service. Which brings us to Section 3, Stages of Quality Control, a chronological flow. There is this massive misconception out there that quality is just an end goal, like a little box you tick at the finish line. But in reality, it's a flow that builds across 3 main stages. Step 1 is product or process design. Now, this happens during the conceptual phase, way before a customer ever sees a thing. You have to bake those initial quality standards right into the blueprints. Then we get to Step 2, manufacturing and production. This is where you're inspecting raw materials, you're monitoring the actual production process, and you're checking those finished goods before they go anywhere. And finally, Step 3 is the after-sale stage, because quality control absolutely does not stop when the cash register rings. It means monitoring and maintaining those standards even after the customer is using the product or service. So it's a continuous end-to-end loop. Now for the big one, Section 4, Total Quality Management, or TQM, the Master Plan. So, you're probably wondering, how on earth do you manage all these different dimensions and pillars and stages all at once? Well, enter total quality management. TQM is a holistic approach, entirely focused on long-term success through customer satisfaction. But honestly, the most crucial part of this whole definition is right at the end, involving everyone in an organization. See, TQM isn't just a process, it's a philosophy, where quality isn't just dumped on the QA department down the hall. No, it is a relentless, shared effort expected from the CEO all the way down to the newest intern. Structurally speaking, TQM leans heavily on customer-driven design, meaning you identify what the customer actually needs and you build your production processes specifically to hit those needs. It also relies a ton on continuous improvement. You might have heard it called Kaizen, which is all about long-term process refinement instead of just frantically chasing short-term financial targets. The whole idea is to construct a management system that actively drives improvements in total harmony, literally transforming the culture of the organization itself. And to actually pull this off, organizations lean on these 6 pillars of TQM. These are your strategic methodologies. You've got the plan, do, check, act cycle for that continuous improvement we just talked about. You've got employee empowerment, which gives actual responsibility to workers to boost morale and problem solving. There's just-in-time, or JIT efficiency, which slashes waste by receiving goods strictly as needed. But I really want to pause and highlight Six Sigma precision. This is a methodology aiming for near absolute perfection. It ensures processes produce no more than 3.4 defects per million opportunities. I mean, really think about that scale for a second. 3.4 mistakes in a million tries. That is the wild standard that TQM is constantly striving for. All right, wrapping things up with Section 5, the Essential TQM Toolkit, actionable data. Because let's face it, to hit a target like 3.4 defects per million, you absolutely cannot rely on guesswork. You need hard, actionable data, and you have to arm your team with the right tools. So let's take a quick look at the 7 essential tools of total quality management that make this happen. They range from super simple data collection forms to pretty intense statistical charts. For instance, up on the top left, you've got check sheets. These are great for gathering repetitive data with minimal fuss. Then, down on the bottom right, you'll see control charts. These use upper and lower limits to monitor process stability, basically keeping you from overcorrecting when totally random, normal variations happen. The entire goal here is just to visualize complex processes so teams can actually spot the problems and fix them. Let's actually zoom in on one of the absolute powerhouses in that kit, the Pareto chart. This operates on the famous 80-20 rule. And this principle basically says that roughly 80% of your total problems are usually caused by just 20% of the causes. In any busy company, you obviously can't fix everything at once, right? So the Pareto chart helps teams prioritize. It visually separates the vital few causes from the trivial many, so you can hyper-focus your time and energy on that 20% that's going to give you the biggest possible improvements. Another genuinely brilliant tool here is the fishbone diagram, sometimes called a cause and effect diagram. When a problem pops up, it is almost never due to just one isolated thing. So fishbone diagrams help teams visually organize all the contributing factors, things like materials, methods, manpower, measurements, to see how they all connect. Instead of just slapping a Band-Aid on a symptom, this tool forces the team to drill down and surgically address the actual root cause of whatever's going wrong. So, bringing it all together, the crucial point is this. We've seen exactly how top organizations define, measure, and meticulously manage quality through the master plan of TQM. But the source material leaves us with this really fascinating paradox to think about. TQM methodologies like Six Sigma ultimately aim for a zero-defect standard, right? Getting it right the first time to eliminate all waste. But in a world that is inherently driven by unpredictable human error and constant variation, we really have to ask, is absolute, flawless perfection actually possible? Or is an organization's relentless, structured pursuit of that impossible perfection the thing that actually becomes their ultimate competitive advantage? It is definitely a powerful thought to take away. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep pursuing excellence.